Hey everybody, welcome back to Advocacy Help Desk. We are a network of advocacy professionals and innovators. We're taking a different look and a different spin than I think most people do. We're trying to find the way forward together. So this is a free podcast for everybody out there in advocacy. We want to bring in the top leaders and we want them to share with us what they're seeing, what their concerns are, what some of their wins are, and help us all to get a little bit better. I do want to thank Human Factor for helping us produce the podcast, and of course my partner in crime, Brian Fracken with Spark Influence, that runs our platform for our newsletters and also for the website that we put together. Brian, you know, we've been talking to a ton of people lately. I think everybody's been checking in with all their friends and all their networks over Zoom calls and phone calls and tweets and chats to see what people are doing and best practices. And we've got another top leader in our advocacy industry here with us today. So who's on the help desk today for us?
I'm excited today. So the last couple of weeks, we have been doing a lot of sort of consultant work and talking to folks that are helping other organizations. Today, we have Reshma on the show today, Director of Grassroots Advocacy at a very small group called the AARP. But super excited. I've known Reshma in the advocacy space for years. We'll talk about your career trajectory later, but I'm just excited to talk to you today just about sort of what you've seen from your association, from your group, how you guys are reacting, what's the latest going on, and maybe we touch on Elmo in the background. I don't know, but it's great to see you and great to have you join us today.
Very professional background here, only the highest quality. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to be here. So so I am AARP's Director of Grassroots Advocacy. It's a relatively new role for me. I just started into that role in January, so I've kind of been thrown feet first into the chaos around the pandemic, as we all have. So I have to say I've been really proud of AARP and how they've approached the pandemic and how they've dealt with the crisis. You know, and I know you guys know, but AARP, we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization for people 50 and older. We have around 38 million members around the country, and we advocate for just a whole variety of issues that affect people 50 and older. Of course, our bread and butter issues, Social Security and Medicare, but also just all the other issues in the retirement security space, the health security space, and other things to do with housing, transportation, how to make a community more livable. So, when this all sort of started becoming very real for everyone here in the States, we obviously got concerned because older people are more vulnerable to the coronavirus than other populations. And so we knew that we had to act fast to, provide our membership with information, with trustworthy resources, with just useful sort of real-time information. There's so much stuff out there that who knows what the source is. I personally am on so many WhatsApp groups with family and relatives around the world forwarding, like, you should drink this tea and prevent the coronavirus. So, how do we filter out all of the myths and bad information and really get people good, trustworthy information? And also be the fierce defender for our membership. Congress also started acting very quickly to look into stimulus packages and different things. And so how do we make sure that they include priorities for older Americans in those packages? So I've been really proud of what we did. I think we made a couple really major decisions early on. So once it's all started becoming very real in March, we actually paused our major federal advocacy campaign. So last March, back in the olden days, in March of 2019, we had launched this campaign called Stop RX Greed, which is around prescription drug affordability. And it was going great. We had a really nice win last year with HR 3 passing the House. We were working very closely on a bipartisan Senate bill. And, unfortunately, everyone had to pivot, right? So we decided to pause that work we were doing and turn full time towards doing coronavirus advocacy. So I think it was like March 4th or 5th, we sent out our first coronavirus grassroots advocacy email around the first stimulus package and making sure that, that any treatments are free, that any sort of vaccine is affordable, And we've taken steps ever since then. So, one thing I'm really proud of that we fought for, we got Social Security beneficiaries the full $1,200 stimulus payment. So there was a lot of talk originally to give them a lower payment and this and that, or make them fill out all sorts of like additional paperwork. We got all of that taken away. So I'm really proud of that. So retirees, Social Security beneficiaries, they're getting the full $1,200 payment. Great. And they don't have to fill out any extra paperwork to do that. And we also fought for, paid sick leave and just all sorts of other things. Again, affordable vaccines. So I'm really proud of how AARP has risen to the moment.
Let's take a step back, because I love one of the first things you said was that you immediately set up your own coronavirus destination, right? And I'll ask Andy the same question in a second, because I know that they've done the same, as have most associations. But I think that was really one of the most important things that folks could do, because, for better or worse, folks are sort of getting sick of the coronavirus task force, and then they're getting sick of the daily news feeds from wherever they're seeing them. And they're looking for a source that they know and trust, that's either in their industry or that they've worked with, that's protected their rights potentially, to give them that information. Is that what you saw with AARP? Is that, and what's sort of the next pieces that you're putting in place there?
Yeah, so we started, we had set up, and they still are there, of course, English and Spanish landing pages, which, by the way, on a side note, is another thing I'm super proud of. AARP has been really amazing, especially these last few years, at parallel pathing everything in English and Spanish. And so we have AARP.org/coronavirus, which is our one-stop shop for all of our coronavirus resources and information. And we also have AARP.org/el coronavirus, which is everything in Spanish, not just translated, but really sort of created to meet our Spanish speaking membership where they're at. So it's been a really great effort there. But on the grassroots front, the advocacy front, the other really interesting thing has happened is the revival of a tactic that we thought was dying. So we, for years, have been doing these things called Tele-Town Halls, which are these telephone town halls. And, we've been doing it for years. They were sort of the hot tactic several years ago when they first came on the scene. But, our response rates were getting lower. I mean, look, we know less people have landlines. No one's answering their phone anymore. And so we were just seeing kind of lower and lower participation rates. And so we we're having these discussions internally, what is the next step for this tactic? Who knows what's happening? And suddenly, with the coronavirus crisis, they have become the number one way we're communicating with our members. So we have had, I think, around 150 to date, and it was 145 a few days ago, so it's probably around 150 now. Tele-Town Hall. So we do at least one national Tele-Town Hall every single week, Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we have partnered with all sorts of experts, CDC, HHS, the Surgeon General, all sorts of different national experts. We explore different topics every week. So it might be around, your health one week, around being aware of frauds and scams, around your mental health, around family caregiving and nursing home issues. So we have different appropriate experts on every single time. And we've gotten literally thousands and thousands of questions. And so it's been kind of amazing to see this revival of this very old school phone tactic. And we've seen people, it's essentially a cold call to people we do to our membership. And we're usually happy to stay on the line for 5-10 minutes. We've seen people staying on the line for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour. People just want this information, and they really trust AARP to be the convener of these experts to bring them the information. And then on the state level, we've done it too with governors, mayors, members of Congress. So it's been fantastic. Interestingly, a really good relationship building opportunity for us with elected officials.
Are you guys doing micro groups, target a city or target a state and do just one focused on that geographic area? Because obviously what we've seen is the difficulty for footwear is you've got retailers opening up in Georgia and they're still closed in New York, right? So there's this discongruent effect across the US, and I'm just imagining getting the groups together by geography or other categories that you may have in order to do that. But the Tele-Town Hall is really interesting. So before you answer that, I think it's great. My boss was one of the first ones that started Tele-Town Halls.
Oh, really?
It was in 2005 or something like that. So they've been around for a long time. But I love the fact, and here's the takeaway, basically what you're saying is everything's on the table, right?
Mhm.
Every tool, even if it's something we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, everything's back on the table. We're in a digital age where we can try things fast and cheap. And if it doesn't work, you just try something else. But you went back to an old toolkit that now works versus,
That's right.
something did like, oh, Twitter, da, da, da. Everybody's tweeting, everybody's doing, we need more Facebook posts. And you guys said, what could we do that would actually connect better and allow people to have a better interaction than just tweeting? And so personalize it, make it,
and in a way it's very trustworthy,
right, right.
Yeah, I mean, the participation rates have been just historic, just incredible. And look, I mean, I think it's partly that we're all stuck in our homes. And so
Right.
like, yes,
Sure.
I will listen to the Surgeon General for an hour, but hey, it's been a really good way to, be that convener of real experts, So.
I love that, because you're because you're AARP, yes, you have some advantages of being sort of a larger association and having the built-in cachet that you guys obviously have to work for all the time. I'm not saying that, but that also means that you can have some of these real experts come on the phone and say, look, I've got our membership. They have questions for you. They want to learn more. So don't be afraid, even if you're a small organization, to make those asks of those groups then to see if they want to join you, just because we have these sort of open-ended conversation capabilities now. And I think that's fantastic. I love it when, as Andy said, like, you go back to just the basics and it works. And
right. You're kind of like ready to like do the death knell for this tactic. And now here we are.
Right. So then the question is, all right, are you still seeing a growth in participation there? Are you seeing some fatigue there? I think that what we've all experienced is sort of like, for the first 6 or 8 weeks, I'm not saying it's novelty, but it's just different. Now that we're settled into it, what does that mean for the next couple of weeks as folks in places, and as you said, as folks in Georgia and elsewhere are starting to open up versus other folks that are going to be inside for longer versus, your membership, which may be inside for a while. And that's just because that's what they're going to do.
Right.
So what kind of things are you thinking about next, or what, what's a transition? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I know even on a personal level, and this is probably all of us, right? Those first few weeks, I'm like, I'm going to work 24/7 on this,
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint, right? But,
Right.
Or a roller coaster, perhaps.
A roller coaster.
Apt analogy.
Yeah.
So, we've actually still had a really steady clip of Tele-Town Halls being scheduled, only because we have been doing them with so many senators, governors, members of Congress. And so we've been calling different pockets of our membership every single time. So it's not like the same member is getting called over and over and over, right? A member might only get a call once every 30 days or so. And so
okay.
I don't think there's been fatigue in that sense. Luckily, we've been, and that's a whole other side, like the internal side of the game is managing our data so carefully so there isn't that fatigue on the membership end. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys know, I mean, that's, full-time job in and of itself with the data management. And then we've also just been trying a lot of different tactics, right? So on the email front, the interesting thing is, I think we have seen from kind of the March, early April, we've seen our response maybe go down very slightly, but it's still very high. But the cool thing to me is that we've engaged a lot of prospects. So these are people who had, signed up to join our list, but then they had never taken an action. And so I think we've had about 136,000 prospects convert into being activists over these past few months. And of course, that's huge. And, these are people we've probably been emailing with, for example, our prescription drug messaging for a year now. And nothing, right? And so for whatever reason, that issue wasn't connecting with them, or whatever the case was. Who knows? Everyone's interested in different things, right? But I think because we're in this historic moment where coronavirus is the top of mind thing for everyone, we really met these people where they're at. So suddenly we've had, over 6 figures worth of new activists join our list, because I think we were able to successfully do that pivot and really talk in a very, I think, again, I was proud of our language. We were very forceful, very direct, affordable treatment, full $1,200 payment. These are very tangible things for people. And I think the numbers bear it out. So.
What are you doing? So you got these folks converted, you've got you brought them in, you know exactly what those new people are that are taking the actions for the first time. How are you thinking about keeping them engaged? How are you thinking about, do you send them a welcome packet? Do you ask them to take another action in order to enmesh them more with you? Because I always feel like the more actions people take, the more they feel like part of the group and part of the cause, right? So what's your strategy for laddering them up to keep them closer and more less peripheral members and more like core members? How do you envision getting them into the core?
Yeah, I mean, so our philosophy, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Our philosophy and our grassroots model is all about that ladder of engagement. So we're approaching them in a way similar to how we, would have no matter what their initial entry point was, right? So after they do those initial actions, of course, we offer them more actions. Normally, we would sort of ladder them up to say, hey, now can you make a phone call to your member of Congress? But all of the offices, have been closed for a while, so that's kind of off the table. But we actually asked all of them to share, not even a story, I want to say, but we did a much softer story collection than we ever have before, right? So we essentially asked them, hey, just checking in with all of you guys, you're our community. How are you managing in this moment? Tell us what's going on. And we linked them to our Facebook, AARP Advocates Facebook page, where they can all just kind of share and talk with each other. So that, I think, was just a really nice, soft way of bringing them in without like making it too formal of an action. Mm-hmm. And then since then, we have been transitioning still around coronavirus, but really focusing in on the issue of nursing homes. So, I'm sure you guys have seen some of the horror stories in the news right now around nursing homes. Right now, 1 in 5 deaths from coronavirus is happening in a nursing home. So the mortality rate is just really, really unfortunate. And there's a lot that can be done with that, providing PPE to residents, to staff, having virtual visitation, having transparency if there's a case in the nursing home. So of those coronavirus action takers, we've been trying to drill in for those that also have a loved one in a nursing home, do a more kind of niche connection for that issue. So we've been doing one-on-one story collection with a lot of them. If they have a loved one in a nursing home, collecting a lot of kind of like the details of that situation, and then using that to inform our state and federal level advocacy. So
I love it. Yeah. And that's, yes, I think the onboarding piece is key. As you said, Andy, as you said, Reshma, is getting these people in, and it may be as soft as just getting them to follow you on social media and mm-hmm. join the conversation there, just because that's the, a lot of clients will say, well, this is where our conversation happens more often, is on social media. So just follow us there. And then, yes, you've hit the playbook of follow us there and then share your story. Like, what can our organization do for you, or what have you done? Why are you a part of our organization? Why do we matter? And then what can we do on top of that? I think that you've hit the nail on the head with that. I love that. Have you, time for the real question here, have you guys had any missteps recently, or things that you wish you had done differently?
I don't know if we've had any missteps in that sense. We've been able to turn things around really fast. Of course, I'm a perfectionist, so I feel like we've missed details along the way, but
sure.
No, I think honestly, to Andy's question, the question is, how do we transition all this work into what's next, into the election? Like, what does that work look like? I think there's just really big questions that we haven't figured out the answer. We're grappling right now with how to, approach that, right? What if candidates don't have events? What if there's not debates? Like, I don't know, so I think there's just so many unknowns to figure out how do we meaningfully get information to our members so they can make good decisions, not just for president, but, for all of the different levels of elections that'll be happening around the country. How do we make sure that they're voting safely? If they can vote absentee. So I think it's more, there's a great unknown like barreling down towards us. And so we're gonna have to work really fast to meet that.
I think one of the key things that people need to think about in advocacy is just agility. And agility really comes down to flexibility. It is speed. People say speed, we need to be fast, we need to do this, but it's all about being able to be flexible, try things really quickly, have your right processes in place,
Yep.
have a right attitude. So, I mean, to Brian's point, we always ask people what missteps someone makes because we learn more from that than anything else, but not be bogged down by those missteps, right? Not be hung up that we missed something or something didn't go right. People are really forgiving in this era because they're just appreciative that someone's giving an effort and making a try. So, you know, I love the fact that you guys went back to your old toolkit and you laid it all out and you said, let's start, you know, moving things around. And that's what agility is. It's an attitude. It's a process. It's being really quick, but with a purpose and a strategy behind it. And my fear is a lot of people in advocacy are stuck to Facebook or Twitter, or because it's easy. It's really easy. You've got all the people there and it's all built, but it's the same thing we talk about for flying. Sometimes you can hit 100 offices in a day, but how many connections did you make? So it's not the question of the quantity, it's the quality of interactions. And I think, you know, that the Tele-Town Hall is great because you get people on the phone and you hear a voice and it's authoritative and it's there to help you. And it's a little bit different than what everybody else is doing now. Because I do think there is some Zoom fatigue to a certain extent. So you try something else for a while and you go back to that and you pivot to that. But if you're not agile, you can't do any of those things.
And luckily we have a really amazing advocacy social media program, you know, the AARP Advocates Facebook and Twitter page. Yeah. So we've actually been able to connect the Tele-Town Halls with Facebook Live. So someone can watch on Facebook Live and listen to the audio of the Tele-Town Hall at the same time. So we've made those connections. But to your point, you know, we've really used our channels in an integrated way, right? So email is still sort of our killer app when it comes to driving true actions into congressional offices, right? Tele-Town Hall has been our main way of getting, you know, useful, trustworthy information out to our members. And then Facebook, Twitter, those advocates channels has been where we really have created that community, shared breaking news, shared exclusive videos, right? So I feel like each one has its sort of role to play in this orchestra.
Right. So you use what's useful for what's useful, right? And that means, like, I mean, this works for this channel, so we're going to do this. And we could do this, but it's not as effective. So we're going to use something else for that, right? And it, you know, the problem is I think people go all in on one channel and just try to do everything, and it doesn't have the efficiencies that you're talking about. It doesn't have those right connections. So kudos.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think we all kind of get into our silos, but the truth is at the end of the day, there's no sort of perfect channel, right? There's pluses and minuses to all of them. So luckily, you know, we've had a good job kind of getting everything to sing together. But yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think it's hard because there might be a project or campaign you've been working on for 6 months or a year, and you have to shelve it at a time like this, right? So you have to be willing to be flexible, to your point, and just sort of pivot and rise to the moment. So
great. Some words of wisdom there, Brian.
I love it. I love it. All right. So closing arguments here, Reshma. Let's hear sort of some ideas or what you're thinking about in terms of just the way that you're engaging now and what sort of some of the things that you're thinking about over the coming months. And then you're right, with this GOTV, yes, it is a large unknown, right? It's still, but what are some of the pieces that you're trying to put in place today to at least get you the answers you need for the future and get you close to where you want to be?
I think, you know, we're sort of at a turning point right now as far as the country. And, you know, right now we've all really been in lockdown mode together nationwide. But I think soon it's going to turn into this patchwork of some states will be open or partly open. Other states will still be fully closed. And so I think we're going to have a voter engagement campaign to meet that reality, you know, that some states there might be in-person events happening. Other states will all still be virtual. What will it look like as far as the RNC and DNC, the conventions? What will the presidential debates look like in the fall? You know, will those only be online? Will they be in person, hosted somewhere? But then most importantly, I think we have to not just think of election day as being one day. I think especially for our membership who are so vulnerable, and, you know, if there's a second wave of coronavirus or who knows, right? I think we have to think of it as election month or a couple of months, right? Where
Right.
it's all about encouraging everyone to vote early, to get that absentee ballot, to vote by mail, so they all can safely make their voices heard.
I like that. I like that idea. Think of it in a different manner. It's not election day, it's election month, and it's a season. And how do we approach our people the same way you're segmenting everywhere else? How do we segment our people to figure out how we address them and get them to the polls when the time is right? I'm always refreshed by your different ideas, Reshma. I love hearing you speak. I love talking with you in this way, just because, think of AARP as this very large sort of organization that's this, monolith, and it's not. And it's nowhere close. And you guys do a lot of great work in breaking up the groupings of people that you're working with and the platforms that you're working with to tell your story, but in the different ways that each one demands. And I think that that's one of the things that I enjoy most about our conversations and just hearing you speak is that thinking through what does it mean to talk to this group today? And tomorrow it might be a different group, and what does that mean? And who are these people, the new people we just have who are prospects? How do we talk to them? And you're always thinking about the different ways to split up your theme into different messages. And I think that that's fantastic.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciated the chance to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for coming on, folks. This is Advocacy Help Desk. Again, it's a free podcast, and we also have video on our YouTube channel. But we're bringing advocacy leaders to the show to try to help spread tips, best practices, help you get a couple of new ideas to help improve your game. So on behalf of Brian and the AHD team, I want to wish you well, be safe, keep healthy, and keep advocating.